Welcome to Healing Oracles. My name is Crystal, and today I am going to do a reading on Rihanna and Josephine Baker. This reading was requested by a subscriber who wanted me to do a reading on Rihanna. If you're interested in watching, please subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any of my content. So today I am going to do a past life reading on superstar singer Rihanna and her connection to her past life as the beautiful jazz singer and dancer Josephine Baker. I was moved to do a past life reading from Spirit, and this is how it came about. One of my subscribers wanted me to do a reading on Rihanna, and I sat down and I thought about, do I want to do a general romantic reading or do I want to find out more about her? And I started to think about Rihanna, and all of a sudden Spirit tells me in a past life she was a dancer. And I said, a dancer? And then Josephine Baker came to me. We will get into the reading of the reincarnation of Josephine Baker as Rihanna. Keep in mind, when I say reincarnation, it just means that the soul departed once death came about, and then they decided to reincarnate. I believe in reincarnation. We as souls come back time and time again on the planet to learn lessons, to reconnect with our soul family, and to take on new themes in life that we need to conquer and accomplish in order to have spiritual growth. Therefore, we as human beings, we occupy a body, but our soul never dies. Now, if you look at this image here, Josephine Baker reincarnated 13 years after her death as Rihanna. The number 13 carries a vibration of spiritual growth. What this means is that 13 is a number of great power and it usually brings great strength. People who have a lot of 13 in their chart have a lot of tests and challenges. Since Josephine Baker decided to reincarnate 13 years after her death as Rihanna, she has decided to continue her soul journey as Rihanna, to go through many trials, tests, and temptations in search for a higher level of spiritual consciousness. Therefore, this number has to do with a lot of going through pain rather than experiencing pleasure in order to have spiritual growth. And we will talk about this spirit. Let's take a look at Josephine Baker's numerology chart. Josephine Baker was born Frida Josephine McDonald, June 3rd, 1906. She's from St. Louis, Missouri. She died April 12, 1975, at the age of 68 in Paris, France. Her astrological sign is Gemini. So we have this duality with her being a Gemini, and we have her quality as being a mutable sign. Her life path number, and the life path number, I always examine this, tells me what they have to go through in life. Her life path number is a 7. This is the same life path number that I have as a psychic, as a healer, and as an intuitive person. So, of course, Josephine Baker has these qualities. Josephine is spiritual and seeks universal truths as a 7. Much of her time was spent alone in isolation. I get that she was psychic and very in tune with her intuition. And if you notice, during the time that she was born in 1906, If we go to the time of her being maybe an adolescent, 10 years later, she was born during very dark times. This brings me back to the reading I did on Aaliyah and Billie Holiday. I feel like Josephine Baker and Billie Holiday's life kind of coincide with each other in a way because they were both spiritual, but they were born during very challenging times. She was known as a street kid. She walked the streets of St. Louis, and she was always either alone or she didn't have parental guidance at times. And at one point as a child, the KKK came into her town, burned it down, and killed a lot of black people. And she had to run for her life. So you can see here that as a child, Josephine Baker had a lot of trauma. Just to give you some background. Now, there are karmic lessons that certain people have to fulfill when they reincarnate. You agree before reincarnation that you will conquer these karmic lessons and that you will transition to a higher level of spiritual consciousness once you complete each lesson. If you notice, Josephine Baker has 3 lessons to complete. She has karmic lesson number 3, karmic lesson number 4, and karmic lesson number 6. That's a lot of lessons that Josephine Baker had to learn. Josephine Baker, as a 3, is very hard on herself. She needs to make an effort not to judge her performance too harshly. And this goes back to when I connected to Spirit and I asked, what type of person is Josephine Baker? And let me go back and refer to my notes. She was a very outgoing and charismatic soul. She was a natural talent. 3 is for the number of creativity. So, of course, she was a very creative person. But at the same time, with this 3 number, she was too hard on herself. Spirit told me that Josephine Baker was a very tortured soul. She wanted so badly to be liked. She wanted to be important. This took a toll essence on her life. This was so important to her, and it was imperative that she be able to make this connection with people. And this was part of her being a tortured soul. This is something she had to learn. She was too hard on herself. Karmic lesson 4, there is a need for direction in life. Like I said, as a child, she was neglected. She had trauma. She also had issues with her mother. And we'll get into that when we get to her karmic debt. Although she may feel somewhat confused about why she is here, she has to find her true path through this life. Through her lifetime, she was always trying to find who she was. And this is where when I refer to her being a tortured soul. She wanted so bad to fit in a world that didn't really quite accept her in the way that she wanted, because of the issue of Jim Crow in the United States. But as she got to be in her older teens, I think around 18 or 19, is when the offer presented herself to go to Paris. And when in Paris, she felt totally free. Now, that is in conflict still with who she is to be in life. Karmic lesson 6 has to do with an inability or a reluctance to make commitments. Her lesson was to put her heart into her commitments and relationships. And she did that. As a 6, she lived her life. She took the leap. She went to Paris. She did what she had to do in order to make her dreams happen. So karmic lesson number 6 is something that she did complete. And as Rihanna, she no longer had that lesson because that was learned. She still was challenged as a 3 and a 4. It was important for her to fit in. It was important for her to make an impression on people that was long-standing, for her to be charming, for her to be liked, for her to be loved. Now let's go into her karmic debt number of a 13 and a 16. She has 2 karmic debt numbers. A 13 karmic debt number, and you notice what's really interesting is I just said that Josephine Baker reincarnated 13 years after her death as Rihanna. And if we look in her numerology chart, we see that she has a 13 karmic debt number, which I said 13s have to go through many tests, many trials. She denied her spiritual self for material gain. She also abused others to get ahead in the past or in a past life. So while she was Josephine Baker, she may not have abused people as Josephine, but she may have did this in a prior lifetime, which carried over as Josephine Baker. Like I said, as a life path 7, she is supposed to be very spiritually evolved. She's psychic, she's intuitive, but she denied paying attention to these gifts in order for material gain. And as a result, the karmic debt of 13 was her challenge number. She also has a 16. This is the hardest number of karmic debt you could get in a chart. A 16 means that you have broken a lot of hearts. You have hurt a lot of people in relationships, whether it be romantic or platonic. There was an abuse of love. So as Josephine Baker, she had really challenged herself in reference to learning about how to master self-love, spirituality, and to love others. And unfortunately, she carried over the karmic debt number 16 in her lifetime as Rihanna. Let's go over what kind of person Josephine Baker was. I asked Spirit, what kind of person was Josephine Baker? I already know that she lived a colorful life. And, you know, if you haven't watched the movie where Lynn Whitfield played Josephine Baker, I highly suggest you watch that film. It is very interesting. I watched it several years ago, but you get a visualization of the type of life Josephine Baker had. She lived a colorful life, from being a dancer to an actress to a spy for the military, living in France, being free. She lived her life. And what Spirit is telling me is that she was a tortured soul. What Spirit is telling me is that she was a tortured soul. Josephine Baker wanted so badly to be liked. This was so important to her. And I feel like it goes back to the childhood with her being neglected. And even during her teenage years, her mother basically discouraged her from being a dancer. She married early, around 14, to a much older man. And all her mother wanted her to do was to tend to her husband. She did not care that she was a dancer. She thought it was a disgraceful profession. So there's your background on Josephine wanting love. This is why it was so important for her to be liked. She always faced obstacles because of her skin color. This is what Spirit is telling me through all of this. She had struggled with issues of her sexuality. She was bisexual. She said back then it was unheard of, especially for colored women. That's what she's telling me. I don't use the word colored, but she's using it because of the times. And at that time, it was unacceptable to be a black woman, highly sexual, and to be bisexual, meaning she had sexual relations with men and women. And in Paris, she was free to do so. But I'm getting she did that in America too when she visited. She wants people to know that she enjoyed her life, which I've already mentioned. She really enjoyed her life. Even though she was challenged, she had a lot to accomplish in the 68 years that she lived. And she accomplished a lot. My head is tingling. Spirit is giving me confirmation that I am correct here. Josephine Baker did the unimaginable. She lived her life. She wants people to know that she enjoyed her life and she had a ball, is what she's saying. And this is why she came back. What I get from a lot of these reincarnation readings is that some of these people don't want to come back. If you listen to my video with Jackie Robinson and Chadwick being the same soul, you will know that in that reading, I told you that Jackie Robinson did not want to reincarnate. In fact, he was angry he had to do so. But he knew he had to clean up lessons, and this is why he came back as Chadwick Boseman. When he reincarnated, he did, as Chadwick Boseman, he did what he had to do so he could have a quick death. This is why he died young. However, Josephine Baker had such a good time. Even though she lived during challenging times, she decided to come back as Rihanna. And we'll get into Rihanna's chart. She wants people to know that her life was exciting. It was exhilarating. She lived in the moment and she enjoyed it as well. This is why she came back. She also came back because there were certain people she wanted to reconnect with because she had to make amends. And Spirit is telling me I can't tell you too much about that. But there were certain people that she had to come back to as Rihanna to make amends. She's a gentle spirit, Josephine Baker. She's very kind, open. In fact, she's too honest for her own good. There were reports that she donated so much, and she adopted 12 children of different races there, and she called it her rainbow tribe. I find it interesting that she called it a rainbow tribe because if you know anything about rainbow children, crystal children, indigo children, I'm a crystal child. Crystal children tend to be born in the 80s or so. Rainbow children are usually the product of crystal children. So this tells me that Josephine Baker was highly spiritual and ahead of her time. And she called her adopted children a rainbow tribe. Rainbow children are essentially healers, psychics. They spread love and light. And this is what Josephine Baker was all about. She wanted to spread love and light. And she didn't have that in her childhood. And I'll get back to that. So she came back to reconnect with people she needed to make amends with. She's a very gentle soul, too good for her own good. And I get when I talked about rainbow children and spreading love and light, her spirit said, I'm here to help the children. I'm here to help the children. I want to save lives. My childhood was toxic. I had to relearn how to adjust. Instead of avoiding the trauma, I had to complete this test as Rihanna. My legacy continues. That's what Josephine Baker is telling me. She had to continue because there was more work that she had to do. Now let's go on to Rihanna and look at her Chart. Rihanna was born Robin Rihanna Fenty in St. Michael's, Barbados on February 20th, 1988. She is currently 33. She's in her 30s. And as I said, she reincarnated. But prior, she was Josephine Baker. I find this so interesting here, and we'll get into it when we talk about her chart. Rihanna is a Pisces, like me, and Pisces is a mutable sign. Just like when she was Josephine Baker, she was still a mutable sign. She was a Gemini. So there's a similarity there and comparison. Instead of having a life path 7, where she was highly spiritual as Josephine Baker, but she still is highly spiritual. Don't get it twisted. Rihanna is psychic, highly intuitive, and she's gifted. She's Pisces. That doesn't leave. It stays. Okay? Rihanna's life path is a 3, which means that she is highly creative. And we can see this through her music. Rihanna is creative and comfortable in her own skin. She approaches life with a bottomless well of optimism. Her imagination inspires her to create, and she inspires others with her artistic abilities. This is wonderful. When we look at Josephine Baker, she wanted so badly to be liked. That's sort of like an insecurity. Even though she was highly talented, she was highly gifted, people adored Josephine Baker. As Rihanna, she has built up more confidence. If you notice, there's no karmic debt 13. She understands her spirituality, and she uses it. You see this a lot with Rihanna when she wears the emblems like the Buddha. Some people were attacking her for that, but she was not trying to discriminate against other people's religion. She wasn't trying to exploit religious artifacts. Rihanna is gifted spiritually. And so she looks at these emblems as guidance for her. When I need spiritual guidance, I surround myself with angels. It gives me comfort. It's sort of the same thing with Rihanna. It gives her comfort to connect to these spiritual symbols. It helps her. She's not disrespecting a culture and their religious beliefs. She's just highly evolved. She was highly evolved as Josephine Baker, and she's highly evolved as Robin Rihanna Fenty. We see that she's living her creative life. Therefore, her karmic lesson of a 6 is no longer like it was when she was Josephine Baker. She had to complete tasks. She did that. However, she still has the other karmic lesson numbers of a 3 and a 4 that she did not learn as Josephine Baker. Rihanna still has to learn to not judge herself so harshly when it comes to her craft or everyday life. She is her worst critic. She's too hard on herself. She wants perfection, but no one is perfect in life. And with the karmic number 4, she still is confused as to her direction in life. I feel like it has to do with her relationships, partnerships, and I'm talking like romantic relationships. She has a karmic debt number of a 14 and a 16. So if you notice, she still has 2 karmic debt numbers. As Josephine Baker, she had a 13 and a 16, but as Rihanna, she now has a 14 and a 16. A karmic debt 14 indicates that she may have abused her right to freedom. Now, this number is relative to drugs. And when I went into her past life as Josephine Baker, I get that she was an alcoholic. However, when I try to research this, I cannot find that she was addicted to drugs as Josephine Baker. But Spirit is revealing to me that she had a drinking problem. Okay? Maybe she kept this hidden from the public, but because she abused her herself in that way, she incurred a karmic debt number of a 14. And she also still has a 16 of an abusive love. As Josephine Baker, she did give a lot of love to her family, but the men in her life and even the women, it was chaotic. It was traumatizing on her end and the other romantic people she had. And she held on to a lot of the bitterness as Josephine Baker. Therefore, as Rihanna, she still had this karmic debt number. We could see the 16 karmic debt number when she played this out years ago with the incident with Chris Brown. I'm not going to go too much into the detail. On February 8th, 2009, she was headed to, I think, the 51st Annual Grammy Awards. And I think it was canceled. So in the car, there's some sort of altercation that happened between Chris Brown and Rihanna, and he physically assaulted her. Now, if we go into Rihanna's childhood, her father was an alcoholic and he was a drug addict, and he abused her mother, and she would jump in as a child to try to break them up. She wanted peace. Again, she was and still is a peaceful person, a very spiritual person, just like she was as Josephine Baker, a very kind, gentle soul. It's still the same. Rihanna is still the same way as she was as Josephine Baker. She does not like to see things like this. A very gentle soul. And usually, unfortunately, a lot of gentle souls seem to attract this type of toxic partnership and end up in abusive relationships. Now, it was said that Chris Brown grew up in a household where he witnessed his own mother being abused. So he did what he only knew, not to make an excuse for it. But this connection, unfortunately, had to play out. And I'm being realistic. If you look at her number 16 in abuse of love, this is why this event happened. 16 is a hard debt number. And 16 involves domestic violence on some end. And you have to, what Rihanna had to do was she had to know her worth. She had to know, I'm not going to take this disrespect. I'm not going to take this abuse. I'm not going to repeat the cycle that I saw my parents do. And also she had to learn she was not going to repeat toxic behavior that she participated in as Josephine Baker. So here is the connection within the numerology chart, that she incurred a new debt of a 14. And it's interesting when I said that I feel like Josephine Baker was a low-key alcoholic. She was functioning. It didn't ruin her voice. She sang and danced to the very end of her being in her 60s. But I find it interesting that Rihanna's father was an alcoholic. So in some way, it still played out. Whereas Josephine Baker, she was an alcoholic. And then when she reincarnates as Rihanna, her soul family, which is her father, was also an alcoholic. So she still had to face this head on. As Rihanna, she still continues to value her artistic craft. And I had no clue that Rihanna paid tribute years ago to Josephine Baker. I am astonished by this and what spirit can do. When I sat down and thought about Rihanna, I did not go on the computer. I did not do any research. All I heard was spirit tell me that Rihanna is really Josephine Baker. So then after that, I did some research and I saw that Rihanna did a tweet wishing Josephine Baker a happy birthday. She said, "Happy birthday to the late Josephine Baker. You have and will continue to inspire us women for decades to come." And she pays homage to Josephine, her own soul, by wearing 1920s inspirational costume. Okay, she says her legacy continues. She wants people to know that. And I said that earlier in my notes that came straight from Spirit, that Josephine wants to still be remembered. This is why she reincarnated as Rihanna. She wants to bring people together with her music. This is why her spirit chose the same path. If you look at Rihanna and the way she dresses and how she dances, she closely mimics her life as she was as Josephine Baker. They even have the same physical attributes, such as a gorgeous physique, a toned body, and they both have a caramel complexion. There were reports that perhaps Josephine Baker is biracial. She mentions being a product of slave and Native American ancestry, and we know that she's from St. Louis, and in St. Louis they have a population of mixed biracial ethnic groups. We know that Rihanna has a mixed ancestry. I believe Irish descent from her father's lineage. So she still chose similarities of how she looked as far as her physique and her background. I find that interesting. Now, when I go back to the reading that I did, Reincarnation of Aaliyah as Billie Holiday, to me, they also look alike and they have the same eyes. If you ever want to know about a soul, you can look at their eyes. Even though Rihanna has light colored eyes and Josephine Baker has brown eyes, it doesn't matter. They are the same soul. I can look at this soul and I'm in astonishment. It's like the times may have changed, but she still kept her look, her vibe. Everything just gels. Everything. Rihanna is a gentle soul. She loves children. She loves to help people. She continues to evolve. She continues to study and learn her craft, come up with new ways to please her fans. And she is a confident woman. It took the last lifetime in this one to build the confidence. But she is here to help change society with her gifts. She is even involved with helping the plight of Black people and what's going on. Just like she did as Josephine Baker when she helped with the civil rights movement. I hope that you have enjoyed this reading and you've learned a lot about Rihanna as Josephine Baker and the connection that they both have. These are strong, confident women who are the same soul, who made a change and an impact in the world, especially with women of color. Josephine Baker had so much accomplishments in her life. She really was, they credit her as the first international superstar. And Rihanna is also an international superstar. She's won a lot of Grammys, a lot of American Music Awards. She's in the Guinness Book of World Records with all her singles. She continues the legacy that she had when she was Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker wants you to know she lived her life in color. And it doesn't matter what color you are. You can still be valued. You can still be respected. You could still be loved. And she wants you to know that you are loved. I hope you enjoyed this reading. Please give me a thumbs up to let me know that you want more videos like this. You like reincarnation readings. You like celebrity readings. As always, I am sending you love and light. Thank you for tuning into my channel. If you enjoy these videos, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button.